Hi, everyone. How's it going? Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Robin, and I'm a part of Remake, a nonprofit that's on a mission to make fashion a force for good through education, leadership development, and transparency. I am so excited to be here today with two women I've had the pleasure of getting to know this summer. Johanna Moonan, the founder of OpenClosit, a peer-to-peer clothing rental platform, and Isha Vij, the VP of Business Development and Supply Strategy for Tradesy, which is a luxury fashion resale marketplace. Both women are giving individuals like you and me an opportunity to be more conscious consumers, to buy less and to buy better while still enjoying and participating in fashion, but a fashion that is more kind to people and the planet. And today we're going to explore some more sustainable options like resale and rental so that you can come away with some really simple, straightforward ways about how you can be more sustainable with your fashion right now. So to kick it off, I would love for our amazing panelists to introduce yourselves, not just your title and what you do, but also what you'd like the world to know about you. Isha, if you'd start us off, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good morning, everybody. I guess good afternoon for the people joining in New York and on the East Coast. I am based here in Los Angeles. And as Robin mentioned, I am the VP of Business Development and Supply Strategy at an organization called Tradesy, which is a premier luxury resale platform based here in Santa Monica. What that means is I'm kind of constantly thinking about how do we bring the best supply to our platform, things that people on this webinar, right, are looking to buy and are looking to buy in a more sustainable and conscious way. I've been with the company pretty new, actually, just about 4 months, but I'm super happy to be here because I personally have always had an affinity to fashion resale. It stemmed from really necessity. I am an immigrant to the United States. I moved from India. I saw some people on the call from there to the United States, Idaho, of all places, when I was a child. And my family really was, all of our clothing, all of our wardrobe, accessories, every single thing was secondhand when we first moved to the US. And that was really, as I mentioned, out of necessity. But over the years, I have very much appreciated and opted in to choosing to purchase secondhand when I am in the market for any pieces. And I'm so excited about what we're doing at Tradesy. I'm excited about what is happening in the fashion resale space more broadly too.
Thank you so much for sharing that about yourself. Joe, would you please introduce yourself? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Good morning, everyone, and I guess good afternoon to everyone on the East Coast. I'm Johanna. I'm the founder of OpenClosit. I guess we're both based in Los Angeles, and we're basically a platform. Think of it as an Airbnb for specifically evening wear. So you can list your dresses on OpenClosit, but you can also rent special occasion wear through OpenClosit. We're a small company. So as the founder, I kind of oversee the marketing and any partnerships with actual dress brands, dressmakers, individuals. I'm actually the person who still hits send on our newsletters every month. And I respond to, the Instagram DM still. So we're still very, very small. Essentially we exist to connect dress owners to dress renters. So we kind of sit in the middle there. What do I want the world to know about me? I guess just that I'm on my fashion journey and I've come a long way even in the past few years. I think it can be a bit of a hard time being a founder of a sustainable fashion business at the moment because people are being held accountable, which is amazing. But I think where we exist is just to make sustainable fashion choices quite accessible to consumers, to people. And so in that respect, I guess I'm just trying to leave the world a little bit better than I found it. And whatever small legacy I leave behind, the reason I'm kind of excited to get up every day is to work on this, this little project that I have here. And I do think that there's a lot of different ways to be sustainable. So I'm excited to be on the call with Tradesy as well, and also just have a conversation about all the different ways that we can kind of remake the fashion industry into hopefully a better one moving forward.
I love that. Thank you so much. We've had a chance to hear a little bit more about both companies. Both of them have really interesting stories of how they came to be. And I think it would be really neat for all of us, myself included, to hear more about the why. Because it's not just about the clothing bit. There's some deeper bits here. Isha, would you share Tradesy's story?
Yeah, absolutely. So Tradesy was founded in 2009, over a decade ago, which was really before sustainable fashion and resale was sexy at all.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it was founded by Tracy D'Annunzio, who is our founder and our CEO today, really out of an observation she had that she had a closet full of clothing and constantly felt like she had nothing to wear. And in having conversations with her friends, she found that they were feeling the exact same thing. She did a lot of research. She talked to a lot of people and found that most women were really only wearing about 20% of what they had in their closet. And she saw that as an opportunity to really change that, right? To help extend the lifeline of all of these beautiful pieces and beautiful treasures that women have in their closets, but ultimately aren't really seeing the light of day, right?
Mm-hmm.
What started as people, girlfriends borrowing clothes from each other, really blossomed into what Tradesy is today. She built this marketplace really to equip women to sell these beautiful treasures in their closet, make a little extra cash, and ultimately has scaled it to a great organization, a huge organization that is allowing women all over the country to do the same thing and making resale much, much more accessible, not only on the buyer side, but also for sellers, right, who actually have these pieces that women around the country are buying. And she's done it initially really bootstrapped this effort. She was probably one of the first people to list her bedroom on Airbnb when it first slept on the couch while she kept this company sort of running and got it afloat. And ultimately, over the last decade, has scaled it, has raised more money to make this impact of Tradesy from a really small one that she could do as a renting out a bedroom can afford to now being something that is really making a huge impact in the fashion industry across the country.
Thank you so much for sharing. Both you and Johanna have brought up the word accessible, and that's something I'm really excited to chat more about as we get deeper into the conversation. Johanna, I know you are still in your developing stage. There's still a really beautiful story behind why OpenClosit came to be. Would you share that with us?
Absolutely. Yeah. I find the Tradesy story so inspiring because it did happen, it started so long ago, so very much ahead of its time. For me, it's kind of, I guess, a little bit of a similar story, but it was about 10 years ago. I can't believe it was that long ago, but I was in university and my group of friends and I, for whatever reason, we would get outrageously dressy to go to kind of the worst bars. I don't know why, and we would go out a lot. So I realized, I guess my aha moment was all the way back then. And because what we would do is we would go into each other's dorm rooms and we would kind of just take stock of whatever's new and fresh. And if I wore it, the dress was new. It didn't matter that 6 girls before me had worn it. I just wanted to wear something cool and new. Of course, our guy friends kind of would call us out on it every now and again. We were dressing up for the girls. So that kind of was when I thought to myself, there's got to be some way that's more fair to do this. Because, when we would go home, I would go home to Toronto away, went to school a couple hours outside of Toronto. I'm from Canada. And I would go back to Toronto and I would do a bit of a shop, and then I would come back with all these fresh things and everyone would wear it. So I was like, there's something here. So fast forward 10 years, and I worked in a few advertising agencies in strategy, and I kind of found my niche really loving research and numbers. So at the time I had some tools at my fingertips, and I actually ran some research with 1,500 women. And I also discovered that yes, still had this idea in the back of my mind that yes, women are wearing such a small percentage of the clothes that they have in their closet. They feel like they have nothing to wear. Kind of figured out how many times, women were going out and getting dressed up and how many dresses they had in their closet, and just kind of sussed the idea out. And I kind of realized there that there was an opportunity here, and that women were open to the concept if they felt like they trusted the person that was borrowing their dress and who they were renting a dress from. So that's kind of how it started. And then I started developing the technology behind OpenClosit with the help of a development team. But yeah, we're still kind of refining that every single day. And it's been 2 years now. Took us about a whole year to build the platform. And we've really just been live for the last year, but it's going well. We're growing, and it's pretty exciting. Every single new person that we have on that's using the platform, it's kind of a thrill. So I'm happy to see that everything's moving in the right direction.
100%. I'm so happy for you as well. And something that y'all have both touched on, Isha, when you were just, doing your intro, and then Johanna just right now, is some behaviors that you were doing naturally. Like Isha, you were talking about, secondhand thrifting as necessity. And then Johanna, you're talking about how you were doing this with your girlfriends. And I think there's something really interesting where a lot of us may have been practicing more sustainable behaviors, whether it was intentional or out of necessity or didn't know it. And I think there's something where this conversation kind of rethinking things that we may have already been doing and really owning that, and being proud of it, as opposed to what we're told often with the fashion industry: if it's not brand new, if it's not if you've never worn it before, it's not cool. And I think that's something that with Remake, we really try and encourage our community to own the rewearing and supporting a fashion that really aligns with their values. And before we really kind of get into it, I do want to take a step back and talk about what sustainable means. That it's such a buzzword. We hear it a lot in the fashion industry, but also in other industries as well. And I know, to me, it sometimes kind of feels like the word natural when it comes to food labels. It's like, well, what does that actually mean? So I'd love if both of you would kind of share what sustainable means to you as it relates to fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to start. And I agree with you. Sustainable is thrown around a ton, like natural is thrown in beauty or in food or whatever it may be. But the devil is really in the details, and sustainability does mean a lot of things to a lot of different people or organizations. And my personal belief is that's okay, right? I do think that there are a lot of different ways to help foster a more conscious consumerism, to help foster a more quote unquote sustainable organization or business practice or industry. And at Tradesy, really, I think the approach that we've taken around sustainability is remaining committed to helping extend the lifeline of mostly luxury goods, right? Which it's not that we love luxury because it's expensive, right? And it makes us feel good. Those things are certainly true, and that's okay. But generally speaking, luxury goods tend to be produced with higher quality materials, and they tend to be produced with a lot of care and craftsmanship. And so when we sell items on Tradesy, our goal is to sell items that we know aren't going to fall apart the second that you receive them. And what we've remained committed to doing is really helping that type of supply and those kinds of materials live as long as possible. we've been in business over 10 years. We've remained committed to, we don't produce anything. There are a lot of organizations that will go on and produce fashion, which we have said, it's really not where we're going to shine and excel. And that doesn't mean that just because, there might be new items on Tradesy, that those are not, that's not okay, right? Things happen in this world, and unprecedented things happen, like this pandemic, right? Which could put even a brand in a tough spot where they might have produced a lot of pieces for an upcoming season and be in a tough spot. So our goal is thinking about how do we give these pieces, whether they are resale, whether in some cases they're new inventory and new supply, giving them a second life, and in some cases a third life too. You'll see people that come and buy an item on Tradesy get tremendous joy out of it for months or years, and they'll come back and they'll relist it too. And that's what makes the platform more, such a great accessible way to access this type of supply. And what we think is really the mark we're trying to make in making it a more sustainable industry.
Thank you so much. Johanna?
Yeah, I love that there are people that are kind of valuing the garments that they're getting on Tradesy, maintaining that value. It just goes to show that your shoppers are probably more conscious of honoring their luxury items, that they're still in condition to resell. So that's absolutely incredible. I haven't really been around long enough to see that come full circle with our dresses, but that's very, very cool to hear. So for me, I too agree that sustainable and fashion almost seems like an oxymoron, because even conscious consumption in itself is the using up of resources. So it seems kind of funny, to think of fashion as sustainable. But for me, I think sustainable fashion means no virgin fabrics. So for me, that means no new clothes. That's just for me. I also do have a lot of friends who work in retail, who are designers, who get a lot out of the creative process of creating, their brands. And for them, sustainability means, paying their workers a living wage, creating a beautiful culture surrounding their company, one that's inclusive, one that honors kind of body image, going against the typical fashion industry body image kind of visuals, or it could mean for them using non-toxic fabrics and dyes and whatnot. And I completely appreciate that. But for me, I think that there is more than enough product in circulation. There's more than enough textiles in circulation that for me, my sustainable fashion journey is maintaining and honoring the life cycle of those garments as well. So I just want to maximize the life cycle of items. And for me, I can't get excited about buying new anymore. So, but I completely respect that we have leaps and bounds to go in the fashion industry, that we can make things more sustainable in a number of ways. So everybody's just on their own journey. And, part of my job is working with these dress makers, these dress brands. And I'm very excited to hear about the dressmakers that are using sustainable practices in their own way. So it's kind of it's a tough question.
It is, and I really appreciate y'all sharing your take on it, because I think something you both have touched on is that, this is not a problem you tackle in one day or with one solution or one strategy. It's really kind of coming at it from multiple ways, from a business side, a consumer side, and then also, I think from a policy side as well. And really kind of focusing on here with, what we can do as individuals with buying power. think both of Remake, we we talk about, of course, like the environmental cost, and we also think about the people part as well, which is something you just mentioned, Johanna. And I think when it comes to when you're buying resale or renting, there's a really it's wonderful because it's something that's already in existence, and that the materials have already been used, and you're just keeping that life cycle going, which is what we all both talked about. And I think what we also encourage our community is to think about the people who are making their clothes as well. So if you are going to buy new, buying intentionally and buying from a brand that is thoughtful to the makers as well. So it's like all of these different things. And Sam just mentioned in the chat that no new clothes. We've been running a 90 days of no new clothes challenge, and that's essentially just been a way for people to kind of reset the way they think about their buying habits. I think of it almost as kind of like a Whole30, where it's not saying like don't say it. People are still people are still able to, if it's buying secondhand or renting or whatnot, but again, really just kind of pausing on the buy mentality that is so prevalent around us, and just really thinking about like, okay, what do I actually need and what actually brings me joy?
Yeah, I took part in the challenge, and I guess it's still going. And it's really made me realize that every single time I go to purchase anything, even outside of clothes, even on Amazon, I realize I get a little bit of a high from it. And it's like just taking the time to pause and not consume anything in terms of clothes at all has been really cleansing. So I loved that. That was great. There's been a lot of people who use OpenClosit as well who took part. That we've got like a little group chat going. So it's been really community building, and it's been great. Yeah, I loved that campaign.
That's awesome. We're so appreciative of OpenClosit support. Now, I am such a big fan of both Tradesy and OpenClosit because you guys offer an alternative for people who still love fashion and want to, feel good when they're getting dressed, but like we were saying, just want to be more conscious about their shopping habits. And so we've talked a bit in the previous question about how they kind of fit into building a more sustainable wardrobe, but I'd love to hear more about, with resale and both rental, like how you envision that working into, your every woman's closet. Isha, if you want to start off.
Or Isha always has to go first.
I should swap it up.
I'm kidding.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to start. So yes, you're absolutely right. Resale and rental both have a place in building a more sustainable wardrobe. For resale, it's pretty obvious, right? You think about a purchase that you might make or a purchase that somebody else might make, and again, how do you make sure that item has as long of a life as possible? And it might bring you great joy for a month, 2 months, a few years, but ultimately knowing that, at the end of the day, I'm not wearing this anymore, and being able to pass that on to somebody else and increase sort of the not only the lifeline, but maintain its value, right? Particularly with high quality produced fashion items. Personally, I buy very, very few clothes. In New York, I lived in a tiny studio apartment for the last 7 years, and there just really wasn't space. I lived with my husband, and new clothes just really didn't have a place in my personal lifestyle. I, for work, did have to go out, and I met clients a lot, and I had to be dressed up a lot. I wish I knew a bit about OpenClosit then, but my way of building sort of a sustainable wardrobe for me was I used Rent the Runway, right? Because it allowed me to get exposure to new pieces, and it allowed me to build my wardrobe in a way that allowed for me to swap things out very, very frequently, but didn't make me feel like I was going and purchasing something just because I needed to wear it one time, right? And there's a lot of things I'm sure that are great about Rent the Runway. I'm sure there's a lot of things that they should be improving, but I think it's important to remember that building a more conscious shopping habit and building a more conscious and sustainable wardrobe is going to look different for everybody, right? And Tradesy is there to help people with that journey, help people identify what it is that they're in the market for, help them buy these goods, mostly resale, at a much more accessible price point too, and have the opportunity to be more discerning with what they're purchasing rather than just because it's there in front of you. As Johanna mentioned, you know, the high you can get from clicking purchase is a very, very real thing. But we want people to come and we want people to look at Tradesy as a place where they can discover really beautiful fashion, clothing, accessories, whatever it may be, and know that it's okay if they don't keep them in their closet forever. And in fact, we encourage them to get whatever joy it can bring them at the time, and then use our platform again to help bring that to somebody else.
I have a couple of, like, my friends and I have been using Tradesy lately. When we find something, we get an idea of something we'd like to buy, we'll look on it, and that sense of discovery is I think it's better than the thrill you get from buying something, you know, online. It's almost too easy, and so there's something with like that hunt, and like you said, you often like find things that are much like much higher quality than what at least I would typically be able to afford. So there's kind of that cool piece there as well.
So that's the goal, right? We think about Tradesy as a platform that also helps democratize luxury goods, right? It shouldn't be that only rich people have access to high quality clothing and pieces that are well produced. Companies like Tradesy open that up and allow a much bigger part of our population to enjoy well-crafted fashion at a price point that is much more accessible than if you went and purchased that at a retail location directly brand new.
Mm-hmm. And Johanna, with rental, there's so many different ways that it fits into like building a more sustainable wardrobe. Love to hear how it like fits specifically with you and OpenClosit.
Yeah, I think where OpenClosit fits into the whole, when you think about your closet and how to maintain sustainability throughout your wardrobe, I think OpenClosit actually kind of lies in the space of things that you don't want to keep in your closet necessarily. So every time something comes into my wardrobe, I kind of like try to hold on to it and be like, before I buy anything, which I haven't been for the last 3 months, I try to kind of hold on to it and say, can I actually honor this item for the remainder of its lifetime? And a great way of honoring that item would be to list it on Tradesy and give it another life to somebody. So, but I'm saying as long as I have it, can I kind of maintain that? So for items that you may just want to wear once, or you have a particular occasion in mind, so you have your best friend's wedding to go to and you need 3 dresses for the weekend. If you really only have that one occasion in mind to wear a particularly loud, sparkly dress or whatever it may be, then that's kind of where OpenClosit comes in. So I would say a more sustainable way of kind of consuming that fashion is through renting it. However, on the listing side of things, if you have designer dresses in your closet that you've only worn between 1 and 3 times, another great way to honor that item is to list it and make a profit off of renting it out to someone else. So I think that's kind of where OpenClosit kind of fits into the whole equation. So whereas I'm not sure, but I would imagine with Tradesy, you get a lot of people buying these gorgeous staples like a vintage Louis Vuitton bag or something like that. OpenClosit is almost the opposite. It's like just all the fun crap you ever want to cycle through your wardrobe. That's just to get the thrill out of a particular trend, or, you know, to really just have a new fashion personality for the night. I think that's kind of where we're fitting in.
I love that. And you have such an amazing collection of really just stand out pieces. Like it's like, exactly, they're very much statement dresses. And I think there's, with Remake, we're really talking about okay, it's like, thinking about your consumption habits. I love the language you use of like honoring the item. And so when you are thinking about bringing something in, to your point, Isha, it's, buying the best high quality item you can. And then again, that's it. Like fashion is it's fun, and it's okay to have fun with it, and okay to, want to wear something decadent. And it's just rethinking different ways of, okay, instead of, buying this cheap knockoff, I can, rent the real thing that's really fantastically made. Or instead of like, buying the knockoff purse, I can get the real thing. And again, I'm doing it in a way where ultimately, like, I'm coming out on top because I'm getting something that's of higher quality, but I'm also doing some good. So it's like this kind of like subtle ways where I joke about like my personal journey of this is like vanity drove me to it because I wanted nicer things, and how could I do it? And it was with more sustainable ways. And I think like that's okay. Kind of like being a part of it.
And it's cool to admit that. I think that's how a lot of people start their journey, so that's totally relatable.
I think there's also, the word accessible. Now, I want to talk more about that because, again, when we hear sustainable fashion, often we think, oh, wow, this is really expensive. Like, it's only available to a select few. And, one of the things that we talk about at Remake is like, well, there are actually ways that we can all participate in this. And so I'd like to talk a bit more about that. Johanna, if you would like to start. Mixing it up there,
Great job. I guess I just want to go first.
No, I'm messing with you. I actually had like tried to like intentionally do that, but I got stuck. So
well,
anyway.
For OpenClosit, we kind of have a rule where when you can list a dress, but ultimately it does go to our curator for approval. So everything is put together, and nothing is listed for more than 30% of its retail value. So there's some really amazing finds on there, like a Saint Laurent dress that would otherwise be $5,000. You could rent it for a few hundred, but there's also, so it is a lot more affordable. So where you might go to a Zara on a Friday night and pick up $100 dress that you're really only going to wear once before it kind of falls apart. You can go onto OpenClosit and instead rent a dress that's of a designer quality and very much on trend, and everything we hope is very stylish and modern. So you're kind of making a safe fashion choice, and it's much more affordable, so much more affordable. And yeah, so I think that's kind of where things are more accessible. Of course, it is still evening wear, so it's not 100% accessible. But I think we're getting there. I think we're working towards a more accessible fashion industry with the resale and renting pre-owned. But I think a lot of designers that I talk to are initially almost hesitant because it sounds like an OpenClosit may actually be in conflict with their business model. So, you think of a designer, if no one's going to kind of buy a dress if they can rent a dress for way less. But that I don't really see that as being the case. I see it as it's almost opening up a new audience to access this designer fashion. So these designers would otherwise not even be concerned with the people that we're trying to kind of get involved and engage with designer dresses. And it's just a completely different audience. So I do think that we are making really good quality clothing more accessible to the masses. And I think there's always room to make things more accessible.
And I appreciate you bringing that up because, again, I think it's about making these small steps here and there, and it's there's not like one company that's going to fix it all or one person who's going to fix it all. It's each of us finding what we can do in our own life, and exploring the different types of options that are out there that You know, I think there's something that Lizzie, who's on the call, said, you know, just how you can, you know, still be stylish, but, you know, do it without the guilt. And I think
that's what I love about Remake is Remake makes it it's not daunting. And one of my favorite quotes is, we don't need a handful of people doing zero waste perfectly. We need 1 million people doing it imperfectly. So it's just making a start. And that's what we're trying to do.
100%. All right, Isha.
Yeah, I think what Johanna's remarks are really aligned with how Tradesy thinks about accessibility too, giving people access to high quality clothing at price points that really are much lower than if they were to go buy these items brand new. On Tradesy, you know, very, very high portion of the pieces that are represented on Tradesy can be purchased for up to 90% off what they would be sold at retail value, right? So a lot of the people that come and shop on Tradesy are value shoppers, right? But that doesn't mean that they would never go into a Louis Vuitton store and purchase a Louis Vuitton bag. Sure, and you know, we certainly support that industry. We're in business because Louis Vuitton is making handbags that people continue to want for years and years and years. But we think of ourselves as, again, like Johanna mentioned, a place where you can continue on your fashion journey and you can become a more conscious consumer and you can be more thoughtful about what you're adding to your closet. But even so, if you do add it and you decide that it's no longer serving you, that it's okay, right? That we are human beings who change. You know, I'm sure, pieces in my closet that I was obsessed with when I first purchased them, and now I think they're the most hideous things in the world, right? And when I get a minute, I should go and list those on Tradesy because it could bring somebody else a ton of happiness and they could get more value from it, and that's our goal. We want people to be able to access these pieces without feeling like they need to save forever to get their hands on something. And even once they do purchase it, understand that it's okay if they love it forever, or they love it for a period in time.
And I think there's something kind of, you know, with both of y'all, this idea of like normalizing the idea that it's okay to, you know, like wear something that someone else has had before and to own that, and that it doesn't make the garment any less or you any less. In fact, I think it makes you like arguably more stylish because you're finding something that you know, maybe necessarily mass produced or as readily available. There's that sense of, again, discovery we were talking about, where you're really you're finding things that fit you as opposed to what we're being fed on Instagram or with fast fashion. It really allows you to take a step back and think about things that you really care about. We have a question from one of our guests. And this is actually about starting of the businesses. This comes from Alexandra. Curious to know more about what the capital raising environment is like for platforms. Are you seeing an increased number of investors interested in this space and seeing the market potential of these businesses? And that kind of goes back to, again, this idea where you know, sustainability is becoming much more prominent. And how are you guys seeing as it relates to the business side?
Yeah,
go ahead, Isha.
Definitely seeing more interest from investors, particularly as sort of what's happening in the broader world right now is accelerating the resale market and showing that this is an area that is going to continue to thrive, particularly during these during times of economic turbulence. You know, resale is an area that is much more like we talked about, accessible for people, right? So if people are in times of economic uncertainty, they're going to be much more conscious and value-based in the decisions that they're making, particularly around discretionary purchases like clothing, right? Or accessories. And so what we've seen is sort of the market for resale really accelerating over the last few months even. I think it's predicted by 2023 that this will be a $51 billion industry, resale, which has been accelerated since the pandemic started. And Tracy has shared with me multiple times, when she started this company, this was fashion resale, luxury resale was not in vogue, right? People did not understand it. If you think about a typical investor, particularly, it's very rarely, Tradesy sells women's fashion. There weren't a ton of women venture capitalists that Tracy was meeting that understood the need and understood the opportunity and were eager and excited to invest in the company. But that has changed really dramatically. Tradesy has been fortunate to have some really incredible investors that have been with us for quite some time that continue to show great support for what we're trying to do as an organization, particularly to scale the company and take advantage of the opportunity in front of us. But there's been a lot of new interest from companies that we historically had never thought of as partners or investors. But I think the world is really opening their eyes up to the opportunity and resale. And it's not only good for the planet, but it makes good business sense for them, for investors too, to bet on a company that is not only going to help shoppers acquire great quality pieces at a more reasonable and accessible price, but also is providing an incredible opportunity for women, particularly in times of economic uncertainty, to make some extra cash from things that they already have at home, right? So we think about it from both the buyer perspective, but also from the seller perspective. Tradesy offers a great way to build some economic certainty and to make a living out of things that are that you already have at home.
Most definitely. Thank you so much for sharing. And Johanna, I'm curious kind of your take on this as well.
Well, that's very exciting to hear, Isha. That's like very good news. But yeah, so actually we were quite far along our first kind of raise. And honestly, I think it was more of a personal decision on my end, but we put it on pause. But that's really just because I think we have everything that we need right now to weather the storm and hopefully, but in terms of actual interest, agreed. So right now, yeah, the resale, the secondhand clothing market it's at 7 billion. There is so much opportunity to grow there. The projections are incredible. Yeah, like 64 billion by 2024. And it's definitely a rapid growth market, which is incredible because I think that's stemming a lot from what Isha said in terms of mindset around sustainability and the openness to it. I also just think on more of a psychological level, people are fortunate to have this time to take a step back and have a break from life and rethink what is important to them, and really realize that over consuming a bunch of stuff isn't making them happy. Like maybe the first few weeks of quarantine, we were still clicking away on Amazon and shops and using, some people were, I've heard of the craziest things that people were using their unemployment money for to, all the sales that have been available. But now I think people are saying, wow, we've had a lot of time to kind of decompress from the busyness and the pace of life. And I really think that people are putting actual conscious thought into consumption. So I do believe that this movement towards buying and renting more sustainably and making those decisions is only going to be amplified. And there are just so many statistics, there's so many cases of businesses that have come out of economic depressions, if that's what you want to call this, coming up. And I think that people are still going to have really fun things to go to post-COVID, and they're still going to want to dress up. But but they're not going to potentially have the same economic priorities around spending specifically on designer dresses. So I think it's a little bit different for Isha and I. So for Tradesy, if you're investing in a staple that's really going to round out your outfit and you're going to have it for the rest of your life, you're going to cherish a bag and pass it on to your daughter. Like it's a bit different than dresses. For me, and for us, it's felt a little bit irrelevant for me to be really going hard on the marketing of designer dresses, because it to a degree, it feels a little bit insincere to me. So which is why I think we've just taken a little bit of a pause on our raise. But in terms of the interest, it's been very, very high. So I think that's really promising. And we're in a place that hopefully post-COVID, our business will really thrive. So that was a really interesting question from, was it Sam or thank you?
Alexandra, thank you for the thoughtful answer.
Thank you, Alexandra.
Really, but for both of y'all, thank you so much. I think there's, we both touched on a lot of different things there. I think, Johanna, one of the things you were saying, I think a silver lining of COVID, if you could call it that, is this the pause that, those of us who are, fortunate enough to have, a roof over our head and our necessities taken care of. It's been a real kind of awakening of like, oh, like there's a lot of things that have been going around me that I just never paid attention to. We've seen that with Remake. Remake has been around for many years now, and our community has grown exponentially during the pandemic. And I think it's because people are starting, as it relates to fashion specifically, starting to pay attention to like, oh, this is how like stuff works. Like I not too long ago thought machines made my clothes. Like I didn't know it was people, things like that. And so I think it's all of us kind of taking a pause and going back to what you're saying about, reevaluating, what are my priorities as a human being and where I'm spending my money. And I think there still is definitely a place for like, beautiful items, and we should still find those moments of joy. So that like, that's where I think, oftentimes fashion is considered frivolous when it's actually, it's not. Like it's something that, can really make you happy, but you can build that in by being thoughtful about where it's coming from. So that's where, again, I think like the Tradesys and the OpenClosits of the world really kind of fit into this ecosystem of just different options that we as individuals have when we're to be more thoughtful about, how we're shopping and how we're getting dressed.
And I think it's so interesting that people are almost doing a bit of a cleansing of their social feeds and preferring to follow channels like Remake that are putting information out there around garment worker treatment and the whole, the Pay Up campaign. That was hugely educational for everyone. And although it wasn't all, here is the best angle of my life, it was, it was a little bit unsettling almost. It's so interesting that kind of like channels like yours have grown, and that's kind of what is making people almost get through this time of uncertainty and this pause. Because I know personally, it doesn't make me feel very excited to follow, a perfect influencer on Instagram anymore who's just showing you, their favorite products that they bought that week. It's just not interesting at the moment, at least not for me. So
I hear you, and I lost my headphone there. And I think for all of us, it's kind of leaning into, things that we maybe not have known about or make us a little uncomfortable. And then again, it's kind of going back to what is something that I can do as an individual right now, whether it is, participating in it, signing a petition, or buying something from a resale place, or listing one of my dresses on OpenClosit. Just again, it's all these kind of small steps, and that kind of leads me to question that Lauren has asked. So Lauren's actually a friend of mine. She's a good friend who's supporting me right now. Lauren has been kind of like on the sustainable journey with me as well. And it's funny how you start with one thing and it leads into another. And right now she's very kind of focused in on, you know, like workout fabrics and fabrics that, you know, are, you know, better for the environment. And both of you guys talked on about how, you know, with the having better quality garments, they last longer. So I was curious if you found like there are certain fabrics, particularly workout, but just in general, that you have found have like, are, you know, better for the environment, but also, you know, have that are able to stick around. That makes sense.
I can take that question if you want. That's a tough one. Workout is tough because buying pre-owned workout can be a bit of a tough one. So I actually haven't bought any new clothes for a year, but the things that I've, with the exception of underwear, shoes have not really held up very well. So I've bought a couple pairs of shoes, bathing suits, and workout gear. I think workout gear is really hard because, well, I guess it's a hygienic thing. It can be anyways. But so in lieu of buying pre-owned, which I wouldn't be completely hesitant to do depending on what you're looking at, like tights, I personally would buy pre-owned. But for workout gear, I think also the stretch aspect of it often means that there needs to be some sort of a synthetic fabric in the mix, which essentially makes the whole kind of product not decompose in landfill for over 200 years. So there, and in America, there is not really a sound way to dispose of textiles beyond putting it in the garbage. Like I've tried to find textile recyclers and it's hard. So I don't even have any recommendations there. However, I have heard a lot about this new kind of like fabric technology, which is bamboo, which offers the stretch that you could get out of workout gear. I have yet to do real digging into it. But what I would point you to, Lauren, is an app called Good On You. So if you're considering buying new workout gear in particular, you can go look at, say, Lululemon. They rate brands, so you can see from a big sad face to a big smiley face where they stand in terms of sustainability. So they rate them on worker treatment, they rate brands on fabrics that they use, also any sort of employee like negative treatment reports. So it's the whole spectrum of sustainability in terms of business practices when it comes to fashion. So they're amazing. I do actually have a list of brands. So if your email's on here, Lauren, I'll follow up with you. But I would say workout is, I'm still a bit stumped on that one myself.
It's worth noting, though I don't have a ton of insight into actual textiles, but Tradesy, we actually do see a pretty high volume of sales of new with tags workout gear. Right? Lululemon is one of our top selling brands, and we see not just Lulu, but a number of other workout gear and athleisure type companies selling on Tradesy. Some new with tags, but some, that aren't. And I think it is a matter of personal preference and hygiene. But even in the case where you are potentially interested in buying workout gear, I think that it's a miss to not think about looking on places like Tradesy potentially for a place to purchase them.
Incredible. I'm going to take a gander just after this. That's great.
We're seeing some in the chat too. Rachel's bought some leggings on Tradesy, and then also swaps too. I think that's something we haven't touched on this, but kind of goes back to almost, Johanna, what you were talking about in your college days when you would swap dresses, and how I think there's, I feel like both platforms are essentially kind of allowing people to do that swap at a much bigger level. So, maybe not all of us have like a super fashionable friend that we can swap clothing with or sell them to. So it's like you have that access with both OpenClosit and Tradesy. Well, gosh, we are like a minute away from our hour mark.
Wow.
Yeah, it goes pretty quick. I just wanted to say, thank you, Isha and Johanna, for being here today. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to share a bit of yourselves and also like the work that you're doing. for those who are tuning in, definitely if you haven't already, follow OpenClosit and Tradesy on Instagram, download the Tradesy app. That's what I scroll through when I just need a little R&R, look at some stuff. If you are in the LA area, definitely visit openclosit.com to rent or sell your dress. They have some beautiful dresses on there. I think I just need to make a trip out to LA so I can rent something.
I'll ship it to you, Robin. Don't worry.
Okay. Amazing. But for everyone else who is here today, thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, follow Remake on Instagram. It's Remake Our World, to get, tips and tricks on how you can, participate in a more sustainable and fashionable lifestyle, as well as just be aware of the different campaigns that we have going on. And if you're interested in doing more, you can apply to our ambassador program. I believe we've got Tanvi, who is one of our Remake ambassadors, who's joining from Bangalore, India. What's cool about Remake is we're a community of individuals all around the world.
Robin, thank you. Thank you so much for putting this together. The subject matter is obviously pretty dreamy to take part in an event like this. Sometimes I feel like not everyone is as passionate about it, but it's so interesting for me. And honestly, thank you so much to Remake for having the community that you've built up. And it's just a really big honor to be a part of this event. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Robin.
Well, again, I so appreciate that you guys do the work that you do, because you make it easier for all of us to just, again, think a bit differently about our shopping and buying habits, and to do it a bit more fashionably. Well, thank you all for joining in. If you were starting off your morning or evening or lunch, wherever you are, I so appreciate y'all being here, and wishing a lovely rest of the day.